I'd like to tell you two stories of two things that happened to me doing this routine called the World's Funniest Waiter all over North America for corporate events. And the first story is about a particular association that I was hired to perform this act for, going table to table, doing the waiter routine, and then doing the show. And this association was called the Canadian Psychiatry Association. And I was hired by the Canadian Psychiatry Association to perform this routine, 400 psychiatrists in a ballroom. And I do need to tell you that never in the history of humanity has one individual been privileged to as much free psychoanalysis as I received over the course of a 45-minute meal. Towards the end of the meal, I'm getting more and more odd and eccentric, and I actually do this one bit in a really big room where I fall down with a whole tray of items and it makes this great big noise. So the tray went sprawling and all this noise was made. I'm laying prone on the floor. One psychiatrist leaps out of his chair and comes over, big man, and he picks me up with one hand, like an iron grip on my hand. So he lifts me up off the floor and he twirls me around and he gets my attention and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "Well, you sure? That was a pretty bad fall." I said, "No, really, I'm okay." Just whispering to him because all 400 people in the hall were watching at this point. So I didn't want to, embarrass him. So I just tried to tell him through my body language and my eye contact, "No, really, I'm fine." He said, "Well, you may feel fine, but I think maybe you and I should just go for a little walk." I could see where this was headed, and since I didn't particularly want to be placed in a headlock, I dropped character completely, and I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "I'm an act. I've been hired by your management to perform a comedy show. I'm about to go on stage and start a juggling routine." The man was entirely professional. He never broke eye contact with me for a second. He registered what I said. He took it in. He studied me. He looked at me. He took a hand and placed it on my shoulder. He said, "I understand. Come with me." When we're placed in a circumstance that's challenging, that challenges our perception, we have a choice to make. And the choice is we can stick to our story about how we think things are. We can see things as being broken and in need of being controlled and fixed and act that way. Story number 2. Performing for a food service association. Food service managers, restaurant owners, and executive chefs from all over North America. I go around to the table and start doing my act, and I can't do the slightest little misstep without every head at that table going, "Yeah." "What are you doing?" I could hardly do my routine. But these people were so into their service and their protocol and everything being just so and just perfect that I could hardly make a move. I was getting more dirty looks than they were napkins. So as the meal progressed, people were being more and more really quite rude to this inept service. And I went around to all the tables and I got around to the back of the room and there was one man. This man's name was Larry. He was from Texas. He's sitting at this table in a nice, crisp shirt and a yellow tie. And I go around to the back of his table, and what does Larry say to me when I get over to him and fill his water glass so full it forms a meniscus on the surface, and you can barely drink out of it? He looks at me, and I have a name tag on that says Malcolm. He says, "Malcolm, you know what? You're doing a fantastic job. Thank you for taking such good care of us. Keep up the good work." I walk away from the table. Now I have to tell you, normally I am in control of what's happening in the room, people's reactions. This man turned the tables like that. The authority of his kindness and his generosity completely disarmed me. And every time I went back to the table, and I swear, I really wanted to get a reaction out of him. No matter the worst service I delivered, all he did was continue in equal measure to champion me, empower me, and make sure that I had confidence in myself and I felt okay about the job I was doing in the service. So, at the end of the event, everyone left the ballroom. Everyone walked out, 400 people trickling out. I'm packing up my props. I look across this large empty ballroom, and walking in through the doors, here comes Larry. Larry walks all the way across the ballroom over to me. He sits down, pulls up a chair, and he's got a very sober look on his face. And he says to me, I have at home a 13-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter. My 15-year-old daughter, 2 years ago, was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I quit my job 2 years ago as executive chef out of the Hyatt in Houston in order to stay home and take care of her because, frankly, she didn't have much reason to continue. He said, it's my job to play the bad cop. I have to make sure she takes her medication and that she really sticks with it. Otherwise, she would just give up. He said, the last 2 years of my life, I've never been so challenged as a father or as a person, and I've had tremendous doubts about my ability to rise to the occasion and do what's needed as a person and a father. He looked at me and he said, I had no idea that you were an act. I really thought you were a server. He said, but because of what you did, I got to see that who I am is a good person. He stood up, he bent over, he kissed me on the forehead in tears, and walked out of the room. That's the last time I saw him. But I tell that story frequently because the gift that that man gave of showing what one individual can do with their perspective and their intention when they're faced with a circumstance that challenges their perception, their habits, their belief system, his choice to empower me, support me, encourage me in the face of that is something I will never forget. Thank you very much.